You're listening to the Vox Media Podcast Network.
This is What the Heck with Mike Heck on MMAfighting.com. Now, here is your host, Mike Heck.
What the heck?
All right, everybody, welcome to a brand new edition of What the Heck on MMAfighting.com. I am Mike Heck. Thank you for checking out the program this week. And man, there has been a lot going on since we last spoke a week or so ago. Of course, UFC 250 is in the books. Amanda Nunes successfully defended her women's featherweight title in dominant fashion against Felicia Spencer. Dominant unanimous decision win. She wasn't in danger at any point in that fight. The bantamweight division was absolutely on fire with huge performances from Aljamain Sterling, Cody Garbrandt, Sean O'Malley, and even Cody Stamann, who had such a admirable performance up a weight class against the game. Brian Kelleher fighting with a very heavy heart. Just super impressive night for the bantamweight division. And then in more than just fighting itself, we saw fighters like Aljo, like Alex Caceres, like Devin Clark use the platform for the greater good to help spread the message of racial equality, really making a mark in regards to what is going on in the country right now. And it's a very important topic and one we will discuss more in depth later on in the program. In addition to everything that happened at UFC 250, UFC President Dana White went on First Take on Tuesday and announced the location of Fight Island, which is on Yas Island in Abu Dhabi. So kudos to him for giving us this idea and letting all of us, the media, the fans, just run with it. Like we're going to the Bahamas. We're going to wear Hawaiian shirts and khaki shorts and sandals and straw hats and sunglasses while we watch fights. No. Yas Island it is, where we just were back in September, less than a year ago. But well done, Dana White. Well done. But he did announce 4 dates for Fight Island in July. We get July 11th, which is UFC 251. We have July 15th, July 18th, and July 25th. So we're going to be running big time as soon as we touch down on Yas Island. He also announced 4 world title fights. 3 of them will take place July 11th on that loaded UFC 251 card. We have the main event, Kamaru Usman taking on Gilbert Burns for the welterweight title. Huge opportunity for Gilbert Burns. Kind of reminds me of Michael Bisping, because even though Gilbert Burns has been on fire as of late, he was not the first choice. Jorge Masvidal was the first choice. They even tried at the 11th hour, according to Ariel Helwani of ESPN, to make that fight happen. They raised his price a little bit, gave him the money, according to Ariel, of what he made at UFC 244 against Nate Diaz for the BMF title. Still couldn't come to terms. Then they called Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards couldn't make it happen, so by default, here we are. Gilbert Burns gets an opportunity to become a world champion. And 10 months ago, he was fighting Alexei Kunchenko in Uruguay. Alexei Kunchenko to a title fight in less than a year. Just amazing. What a story this would be if Gilbert Burns can beat Kamaru Usman. In addition, we have Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway 2 for the featherweight title, and Petr Yan versus Jose Aldo for the vacant bantamweight title. Huge fight card coming up on July 11th. In addition to those title fights, we got Rose Namajunas versus Jessica Andrade 2. That's official. And Paige Van Zandt's final fight on her current UFC deal. She's going to take on a very dangerous insurgent contender in Amanda Ribas. And the 4th title fight made official. The trilogy is set for August 15th, UFC 252. Stipe Miocic will take on Daniel Cormier for the heavyweight title. It's going to be DC's last hurrah, if you will. Man, there's a lot to get excited about. Myself and Jose Youngs, if you go back on our YouTube page, we reacted to all of that news on Tuesday. So check that out. It's not that long, so you can get our thoughts on all of that. Of course, there's other stories in the news. We got Jorge Masvidal versus the UFC. We got Jon Jones versus the UFC. We talked all about that on Between the Links. You can go back and listen to that on the podcast network. Hell of a show. Jose Youngs taking on Damon Martin. It was quite the battle. We have Conor McGregor, quote unquote, retiring for the 3rd time, although nobody actually believes that. But we talked about that on Saturday night. We talked about that on Between the Links. So really no need to get into that here, because we have a stacked show. So let's run down the lineup so you can hear from who you want to hear from, which is not me. You want to hear from the fighters themselves. Wrapping up this week's show, the Happy Warrior. We need some positivity. Roxanne Modafferi, big fight for her. Next week, she takes on Lauren Murphy on June 20th. This fight is big. It isn't a number one contender fight per se, but chances are that the winner, especially with a great performance, might be on deck or close to it, depending on who wins between Valentina Shevchenko and Joanne Calderwood whenever that fight happens in 2020, although Joanne and Roxy are teammates. So there are a lot of moving parts to this, but it's a huge fight nonetheless. Roxanne Modafferi will join us later on to talk all about that. Gina Mazany is back in the UFC. She is replacing Carol Rosa on short notice to take on Julia Avila this Saturday night at UFC on ESPN 10. Big spot for Gina against a fighter a lot of people are very, very high on in Julia Avila, but there's something in this conversation that just really stood out to me. If you follow me on Twitter, you kind of know where I'm going with this. It blew my mind. You're going to hear that story and all about her thoughts heading into this fight later on What the Heck. Heinisch picked up a huge win on Saturday night. His first finish in the UFC against Gerald Meerschaert at UFC 250. Did it in the first round. It's a great performance. And he already has his next fight booked against Meerschaert's teammate Brendan Allen on June 27th. And of course, it was a very interesting week for the Hurricane, a man who has had many very interesting weeks in his life, as you guys probably already know by now. We will check in with Heinisch right smack dab in the middle of the show this week. Devin Clark, who picked up a big win over the previously unbeaten Alonzo Menifield on Saturday night. He's going to join us to give an update on the eye injury he suffered, to talk about his dad's incredible corner work. I am a big fan of Mr. Clark, by the way, as you guys probably know by now. And then, of course, making just a huge statement at UFC 250 with raising his fist in the air before and after the fight. Also talks about his teammate, Jon Jones, taking the streets of Albuquerque a couple weekends ago, and Devin Clark was there as well. So we'll talk all about that. This is a fantastic chat, and that's coming up in around 20 minutes. But first, let us kick things off with another big winner from Saturday night. He was part of, in my opinion, the under-the-radar fight of the night heading into UFC 250, and he made it look easy. He made quick work of Jussier Formiga and is very close to a shot at the UFC flyweight strap. Let us check in with Alex Perez to kick off this week's episode of What the Heck. All right, we have one of the big winners from UFC 250 on Saturday night. He finished Jussier Formiga with leg kicks, brutal leg kicks in the first round. Huge win for Alex Perez, who joins us right now on What the Heck. Alex, how are you, sir?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. That was one way to make a statement to Joseph Benavidez and Davison Figueiredo. Those calf kicks were so nasty, man. His leg looked so awful when that fight was over. Like, I can't even really describe it right now. It's a brilliant game plan, Alex. Was that something that you knew would be there throughout that fight?
I mean, a little bit, but I didn't plan on going to the well that much so often. I just seen it and I was like, all right, I'm gonna do it, and after the first one landed, I was like, oh man, I thought it was going to be a little bit harder to set up, but it was a little bit easier than what it was. So I was like, oh man, just keep going there, and then I just kind of kept with the game plan, started attacking inside and outside of the legs, and just kind of stuck with it.
I know you guys have a bit of a relationship. You're not like BFFs or anything like that, but you guys are pretty cool with one another. Were you starting to feel bad the more and more you were landing those kicks? Because, I mean, it was tough for a lot of us to watch.
Yeah, man, I met this guy 10 years ago. I was the first one to pick him up in the States, actually, when he was fighting at Tachi Palace. And, it was a bittersweet kind of thing, but once I get in there, it's like a friendship aside or whatever, it's time to go to work. I thought it was going to be, it was a little hard at first. I'm like, man, I'm going to have to fight one of my friends, but I'm trying to get paid. I'm trying to move up the ranking, trying to collect 2 checks. So I got to do what I got to do.
What did you guys say to each other after the fight, if you don't mind me asking? I know it's kind of a surreal moment, but what did you guys say to each other?
I was just told, man, I love him, man. He's a good guy. I was just telling him I respect him a lot. He's one of the guys I look up to in MMA, a very true martial artist, he's a jiu-jitsu black belt, but he's the nicest guy. He's always, we keep in contact, he fights, he always wishes me luck. I fight, same, we wish each other luck, stuff like that. So it's like I said, it was a little bittersweet moment, but I knew eventually we would have to fight. Obviously, my ideal would have been, hey, fight this guy for the title kind of thing, but it just happened earlier. And, it was bittersweet, man. It was bittersweet.
It's a super rare finish, too. You're only the 11th fighter in UFC history to finish a fight with leg kicks. It's the 12th time it's happened overall and the second fight card in a row that it's happened. I remember at the beginning of the year, Alex, it was all about after Conor fought Don Cerrone, everyone's like, oh, the shoulder strike's going to be the new thing. Everyone's going to be shoulder striking. But alas, the calf kick continues to be the most valuable weapon in this sport, in my opinion, right now. Is it not?
Yeah, I think MMA is all about trends, what the trends are. And I think that's the trend right now. For a while it was, body kicks. For a while it was certain things, so I think just kind of part of the sport, it kind of goes through trends and phases. And I think right now it's in and everybody's seeing the effects of it.
One thing about this fight card that drove some people crazy was the placement of your fight. Like, it was a great card and it's a great lineup, especially the main card was great, but you cannot tell me that this fight between you and Jussier Formiga belongs on the early prelims. It is an abomination that happened. I know it's empty arena and I know it's 3 rounds either way, but this fight, in my opinion, deserved a lot more, for being honest.
Yeah, some people were asking me, what do you feel? What do you think? I just told them, like, man, I get paid the same, whether the first fight of the night or the last fight of the night. For me, it was kind of like, man, that's cool. I get in, get out. More time for me to go eat some Korean barbecue or something, man. To me, it doesn't matter where I'm at. It's just part of it, man. Like I said, the lineup was great. Everybody deserves to be somewhere on that card. It's happened that I was on the Fight Pass. Cool. Like I said, it was easier day, and I liked it better because I got more time to warm up. I'm not sure how the other guys worked. Where we're getting shuttled to the Apex. We only had X amount of rooms, things like that. So I'm not sure how much time those guys had. I know in Florida, the warm-up time wasn't as much as it was here for me. So, I mean, I kind of liked it.
Biggest win of your career to this point? Like, you've had some good ones, but this has to be right up there, if not number one. Where would you rank this one?
It's probably the biggest win of my career. Like I said, I met this guy when he was the number one guy in the world, and to his credit, that was in 2010. To his credit, he's still been on top of the game. Now I still believe he's one of the top guys in the division. For sure, top 10. For sure, top 5. He's beat the guy that should be the champion right now. And dominated him. So he's still one of the best guys in the world. I feel this is the biggest win of my career. But I'm going to be saying that about the next win.
What did you think of the way the Apex was set up and the ambiance of the empty arena setting? Like, you've been in similar positions before, but I feel like with it being a full-on UFC event, it's created some different things that we haven't really seen before, like the commentators playing a factor in these fights and all these different things. Did you enjoy that, especially landing those leg kicks and hearing it echo across the whole building?
It was definitely different, but I kind of liked it, man. It takes a lot of pressure off people when you don't have crazy screaming fans yelling, or trying to grab you on the way out and stuff like that. I enjoyed it. It was definitely different. I can hear my corners clearly. I can usually hear him pretty good. Cheeto's pretty loud, so I can usually hear him yelling. But it was definitely different.
A lot's been made about the size of the cage in the Apex, how it's 5 feet shorter or 5 feet smaller than the cage you guys usually fight in. And Dana White seemed to shrug it off, even though we've seen so many finishes over these last couple of cards. With it being smaller, do you feel like that plays a factor at all? Like, the reason that we're getting so many finishes is because of the smaller cage, or do you not buy into that at all?
I think it's a little bit of both. Kind of. I think it favors guys that like to go forward. Obviously, the guy that likes to move around and run, it's a little bit different. There's not that much space, but I just think it depends who's fighting. Like, you got two guys that are aggressive. Like, heavyweights, I think they're just big no matter what. But, I feel like it does play a little factor in there, just depending on the fight styles that are going in. If you got two runners, two guys that like to counter-strike, I'm pretty sure it'll play out different. But all the fights, one guy's been super aggressive, and one guy's running, or the guys have been super aggressive, both trying to come and try to kill each other. So I think it just depends on the matchups.
I was talking to Christian Aguilera the other day, who is about to make his UFC debut this Saturday against Anthony Ivy, and he told me that one of the big changes he's made in his career was thanks to you, because you turned him on to your mindset coach, and it's changed everything for him. How long have you been working with a mindset coach?
I've been working with Mike, since I fought Benavidez, right before the Mark De La Rosa fight. I was like mentally, I felt I was good, but I just like, you know what, I'm going to try it. One of my friends actually got me in hold of him. He uses them for wrestling. So, I used him there. And then Christian was coming off the 2 losses, and I was like, bro, have you ever thought about, I was like, how do you feel? He's like, oh, I'm confident because I train hard, but there's always doubt. And I was like, so for his wedding gift, I actually paid for him to work with Mike. And I was like, look, man, like, work with them for this camp and see how you like it. And, he kept the relationship. So it's definitely, it helps me, it helps him. Some people don't need it. Some people are confident that, it doesn't matter what happens, win, lose, that there's still confidence. But I felt like I needed a different edge. I work hard. I'm a workhorse in the room, but I think the mental stuff does help.
What's the biggest change that it's made for you, you think?
Just the perspective on things, the outlook on things is different, kind of things like that. Like everybody says, oh, well, don't make the fight bigger than what it is. Most guys are like, man, this is my biggest fight. This, for me, it's just another fight. Now, before, like, every fight was, oh, man, this is the biggest fight. That's the biggest fight. It's, man, we do this for a living, just a different name, So that's the biggest one for me.
Pretty liberating feeling, right?
Yeah, it takes a lot of, it's an emotional roller coaster, going up, down kind of stuff. It's kind of like people in camp. Sometimes you do great. Sometimes you get destroyed. Sometimes you're doing good. Sometimes you feel like you're not doing that great, but you're doing look good. So it's just so many emotions going through your head, and to have one of those checked off helps a lot.
You know this sport, Alex. We only let you enjoy these wins for like 8 seconds before we talk about what's next, and there seems to be 2 options for you right now. One, as you stated on Saturday during your post-fight media scrum, you're ready to step in for Benavidez or Figueiredo if they can't make it to the title fight on Fight Island next month. Or Brandon Moreno's right there, and with the winner comes the title shot more than likely. That sound about right for you, Moreno, or you step in for one of those 2 guys?
I'm staying ready. I'm in Vegas helping some of my teammates, but, man, I'm running. I'm hitting pads. I'm getting bad workouts. I'm, starting to roll and stuff like that. Get myself a couple days off, and I'm back on the horse, man. This is what I do for a living. Like I tell people, I don't get paid to sit on the couch. I get paid to fight. And, opportunity comes. I just want to be ready. Like no one knew what was going to happen during the COVID thing. But, my management team was like, hey, stay ready. Something's going to happen. UFC is going to be the first one. That I take it to heart. So, taking this to heart, hopefully the opportunity comes. I wish no ill will on anybody. Don't want them to get hurt. Don't want them to get sick. Hopefully they all make weight and stuff like that. But, hey, I'm going to be available for sure.
It's a pretty good position to be in, right? This was a division 2 years ago from this point that was gone. People thought it was done. And now look at you. Your worst case scenario, you're a win away from fighting for the belt. Unless something really crazy happens in that Benavidez-Figueiredo fight, it's a pretty solid position. Like if I told you 2 years ago that you're a win away from fighting for the belt, what would you tell me?
Frank Camacho, he's fighting next week. Man, it's crazy. Just I was paying everybody out and stuff, and it was kind of one of those things surreal. Like I never thought I would be doing that. Just in general, like doing stuff like that just kind of wows me. Being like. People like texting me about the ranking. I really don't look at the rankings. It's not. I can care less what the rankings are. It's just a number to me. I come from a wrestling background. It doesn't matter. But people were texting me. People were there. It's just surreal that I'm that close to getting one of my goals accomplished in the sport. And there's so many more goals I want. But getting closer and closer, it's just more motivating. Everything I'm doing. It's kind of the right thing I'm doing, like all the extra work I'm putting in, all that. Like I can't question that anymore. Can't question sacrificing holidays, birthdays, things like that. Just hanging out with friends. I can't question that anymore because it's paying off.
Were you surprised to get a bonus?
Yeah, man, the card was good. man. Like a lot of people deserve the bonus. I was like, man, when my manager texted me, because I literally I brought my checkbook with me. So after my fight, I like to pay everybody right away. Like, hey, I'm paying right away. And he calls me, did you write that check? I was like, oh, not yet. I'm gonna do it tonight. He's like, well, make sure you write me another one. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, you got a bonus. And I was like, what the heck? And then we hung up, and I texted him. I was like, are you messing with me or what? He's like, no, I'm being for real. And like 10 minutes later, they sent me the thing. I was like, oh, dang, that's crazy. Thankful for that. Thankful for that bonus because I'm always there trying to get 2 checks, but that third one's always makes it that much more exciting.
Couldn't agree more. Future's looking very bright at 125 right now. UFC's brought on guys like Manel Cape, Brandon Royval's in the UFC now. Do you feel like things are coming together better than ever at 125 right now, or that it's still going to continue to be kind of an uphill battle to get fans bought into the division? I love it. I love flyweight fights. I'll watch a whole card of flyweight fights, men and women, no doubt about it. I'll be all excited about it. But I feel like some of the casual fans, they're not sold just yet.
I think it's a lot better. I think there's always improvements, obviously, but I think it's a lot better. But there's still little things that we need to change. Like our division, none of us talk. We all let our work show for itself. We're not out there like calling people out. We're not doing anything crazy. We're not talking smack to everybody. I think everybody respects each other in our division. So, a lot of the fans kind of like, well, that's kind of boring. They want to see the drama and stuff like that. I don't think that will really change. I think all of us we all respect each other and stuff like that. But we'll see. I think the division is good. I think it's exciting. You got new blood in there. You got guys coming up. So it's definitely the best it's ever been.
Yeah, I can't see a world where Alex Perez turns heel and starts running his mouth and calling people out and calling people names and stuff. I just don't see that happening anytime soon, right?
I don't mind calling people out. Like, I do it all the time. I'm like, hey, I want to fight this guy. I want to do this. But you're never going to see me or hear me, really talk smack. I've had people do it to me, and I'm like, oh, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm just going to show you what I can do in the cage. I'm not really focused on that. But, that's the one big thing I think that people don't like our division because of that. Every other division, people like Henry Cejudo's talks about everybody. Like people like that. That works for them, but I don't think it's for me.
What did you think of Cejudo retiring? That really surprised me. Like, I wouldn't say surprise is the correct word, because I know like he left wrestling when he was at the peak of his career. He won a gold medal. Like, that's the time when you probably don't leave wrestling, especially at his age. But he's proved that he's willing to walk away. But in this sport, I feel like he was just starting to turn the corner. Like, he went from cringe to people like really believing in how good he was as a fighter, and then he retires. I don't think he's done, but I was surprised at the timing.
Who knows? I feel like it might be one of those things that he's been doing sports for so long that he needs a break. Like GSP, right? GSP retired on top, and then took a few years off and came back. Who knows? That might be Henry, but. Wish him the best of luck in whatever he does. It's just one of those things. Sometimes people just get burnt out competing at the highest level for so long. I'm pretty sure it's exhausting.
We got to turn him on to your mental coach if anybody feels that way. But who you got in the rematch between Benavidez and Figueiredo? Does it go any differently than the first one?
Man, I don't see it. I felt like Joe would have a big advantage on the ground. And I think it surprised him when he hit that armbar on him, because I was close to getting finished. Kudos to Joe, man, because I thought I was tapping for him because that didn't look like it was ripping off. But I feel like Joe would throw more numbers, but Figueiredo has that power. And Joe, if he does beat him, it's gonna be by points. Gonna like come in, hit him 100 times around. Figueiredo's gonna throw like 10 shots, but those 10 shots might knock him out. So I got Figueiredo winning. Personally, I want Figueiredo. Like, I think Figueiredo wins, but personally, I want Joe to win. So when I beat him in the rematch, it'll be for the title.
You've been talking about that for like a year now, so this would be like a perfect story for you. Very rarely happens in MMA that you try to lay out a plan and it all comes to fruition at some point.
Yeah, man. Like people are gonna like talk about it, but I'm a sore loser, man. Like, I respect Joe and everything he's done. He's actually a pretty cool guy. I've talked to him a little bit outside at the gyms and stuff. He's actually a really nice guy, super cool. But I'm a sore loser, man. I hate losing. I don't care what it is. So like, that motivates me. Like, you have no idea. Like, every day I wake up thinking, like, man, I should have won that fight, or I could have done better, and stuff like that. Even when I win, I look at my performances. I'm like, man, I should have done this. I should have done this. So I'm always critiquing myself. I'm my biggest critic. So when media talks about me, says stuff about me, does not hurt my feelings at all. So like I said, I want Joe to win, but I feel Devin will win.
Big night and a big win for Alex Perez, who not only got a first-round finish of Jussier Formiga, but he's also $50,000 richer, getting a Performance of the Night bonus. Incredible performance from the Team Oyama standout, as he is getting closer and closer to a title shot at 125 pounds as we move ahead to another great performance on Saturday night. Devin Clark, not just for his win against a very powerful man in Alonzo Menifield, but for other reasons that, in my opinion, and most others, I would assume, that are more important than just fighting. So let's check in with the Brown Bear, Devin Clark, right now. UFC 250 was a big night and a very important night for a number of reasons. Of course, the fights delivered inside the cage, but some of the message that were sent out of it and throughout the night may have eclipsed the action inside the octagon. And a big reason I say that is because of the man joining me right now who picked up a big win over Alonzo Menifield on Saturday night. Devin Clark joins the program. It's been a couple of years since we've chatted, Devin. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. Doing great. Thank you.
Awesome. First things first, how are you feeling after that fight? I know your eye was in pretty bad shape. We can kind of see some of the remnants of that right now, but how are you feeling a few days after that fight?
I'm feeling all right. A little bit tired and still a bit exhausted. I did fracture my orbital bone in the first round, and then I had to stay an extra day in Vegas just to kind of recover. And I drove my truck to Vegas from Albuquerque, so I had to drive back to South Dakota the last couple of days.
And how was that drive with a fractured orbital?
It was different. It was different, but not too bad. We made it. Me and my dad. So.
Oh, God. I can't wait to talk about your dad in a little bit. But Alonzo, obviously, big, powerful guy. He finished all 9 of his previous fights, never got past the first minute of the second round in his career. And, that eye injury happened in the first round. At least it was just a nasty uppercut that seemed to have done the damage. You were able to hang on, get the fight to the mat, and survive that onslaught. How hurt were you in that first round?
Really hurt. Really, really hurt. Everything in me wanted to quit. And then I was, then training kicked in, just being there before, mentally being ready. Going into this fight, I was mentally ready to get hit the hardest I've ever been hit. My coach kept saying to me, Chad Smith, he kept saying to me, and we just kind of had that in our mind that, we're going to get hit really hard by this guy, and it's going to hurt, and it's going to suck, and we're going to push through it. So we had a lot of find the line moments where we pushed through stuff in camp, and it worked during the fight. Even I didn't think I would get hit that hard, but it happened.
Was that the hardest you had been hit in a fight?
Definitely. The other one was Jan Blachowicz when he kicked me in the ribs, but this took the cake. This was a lot worse.
Alonzo, big, powerful guy, and he's going to take a lot away from those 15 minutes. Sharing the octagon with you will likely be one of the most, if not the most important moments of his career because of where it could take him. It's either going to take him down a bad road or he's going to take all the lessons he learned and turn it into something positive. But what did you take away from that fight with a highly touted prospect like that on Saturday?
Just how dangerous that I can be when I'm confident in my skills and what I bring to the table. When I don't wait for the opponent to make his decisions for, I don't wait for him to do my striking. I just went in there and forced him to fight my way. And I know he didn't want to fight how he fought. But that all changed when I came out there right away in the first round, threatened the takedown. And from that point on, he did not want to get taken down. He was scared of taking, so he tried to put me on the fence the whole time, and it ended up backfiring because he didn't do anything with it.
I've talked a lot about this since Saturday night, and you mentioned it, and I'm very excited to discuss this right now. In fact, I went on a big rant about this on the MMA Fighting post-fight show after the event, the UFC should have given out a 5th performance bonus on Saturday night. And with all due respect to your performance, sir, your dad was the man who should have gotten it. I mean, my God, he may be my favorite thing about the empty arena fight so far, with his cornering, the yelling and the screaming. I mean, it was just amazing to listen to. How much did having him there on Saturday night impact that fight?
Who knows? He's there every fight. So, and he's like that every fight. Usually you just can't hear it as good, but it was on full. Everybody saw it that night, and it was such an intimate venue there, and it was perfect. It didn't really seem like there was no audience because he was so loud, and he brought so much intensity with it. And that's one of the things he does. That's why he's in my corner. He brings that intensity that sometimes I just don't have. I'm not a violent person. I've never been in a street fight. Sometimes I don't have that intensity, and he's really good at bringing it out in me one way or another. And yeah, he showed up for sure.
Well, with him sitting shotgun while you're driving back to South Dakota, there's no way you weren't making it back. There's no way.
Yeah, it was definitely focused.
Does he do any like motivational speaking or like YouTube videos or anything like that? Because I will buy whatever that man is selling.
He doesn't, but he definitely should. And but he's like that. He's been like that my whole life, ever since I can remember, doing football, baseball, wrestling, growing up. He just has a way of motivating in a very, and not all athletes can handle it, but motivating you in a way to make you want to do it, whether you get pissed at him or not. And a lot of times that's where mine comes. I'll get pissed. We get in arguments all the time. And we actually got into it the day of weigh-ins, about an hour and a half before weigh-ins. We had a little disagreement. He came into the room and he had his camera on, and I'm cutting weight and I'm hitting pads. I had so much energy. I don't know why I had energy, but I was hitting pads to cut weight. And this is the morning of weigh-ins. And I'm in the zone. He comes in the room and he's got his video on. He's talking to a buddy or something. And I'm just a complete dick about it. I was like, what are you doing? Turn that off. Turn that video off. And I was just in that zone, and it clicked for him too. And he's like, what the fuck? He went off. So I went off, and we got in each other's faces. And like, it was a pretty intense moment. And then it almost went down. He would never hit me, but it was an intense moment. And then he left the room and came back about a minute and a half later. It's like, okay, let's work. And I had some of the best pad rounds ever right there. So it's just little stuff like that where we'll get in arguments. He'll say something to piss me off, but it's almost purposeful, and he has a meaning behind it, and it gets me fired up every time. And he's done it my whole life. Sometimes I don't like it, but it's just that's our relationship.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have an amazing bond. It's almost like you're like your father and son, but you're also like brothers too, in a way.
Yeah.
You were in the news everywhere on Saturday night because what you did before the fight and after the fight. You were on CNN. I mean, you were all over the place. In the intro, when Bruce Buffer was announcing you dropped to a knee and you raised your fist in the air. And then after the fight, you stood next to the rest of your team and you guys collectively raised your fists in the air once again. And it's obviously a very crazy time in the world and in the country, has been all year with COVID, and now with the injustice going on in the wake of George Floyd's death in Minneapolis, thanks to members of the police department not doing what they said they would do when they took their oath to the position. I know you weren't part of the virtual media day on Thursday. You didn't get a chance to speak with the media after the fight either because you went to the hospital. First off, how important was it for you to choose those moments to make your first real statements about what's going on in the country? And second, did you expect it to spread as much as it did?
I chose to do it. Just it felt like the right thing to do, and I had a fight to focus on when kind of all this stuff was starting to go down, and so I wasn't able to be as active as I wanted to be to let my voice be heard. I couldn't protest as much and stuff like that, and really dig into it because I had the fight coming up. So I knew I would have an opportunity when my name would be announced, and I didn't really tell. I think I told one person that I was going to do it, and I didn't even think whether it was going to be a big deal or not, or if people were going to get mad, or that it would be some kind of news deal. It's just something that I knew that's how I could show my support and for the people that feel like they don't have a voice right now, and that's black, white, or other. So it was just one of those things. I felt like I had to do it.
I know Jon Jones, your teammate, was out taking spray cans away from people trying to vandalize downtown Albuquerque. And then, he took the next day to try to rebuild the community. He was out talking to the police and all that stuff. When you see Jon out there doing what he was doing, he's obviously one of the biggest names in the sport. That's got to feel good for you, knowing that he's one of your teammates and he's trying to get out there and do his best work as well.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely proud of him. And I was actually with him both of those times. So that Sunday night, I actually filmed that video.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that Sunday night we went out, and because there's not a whole lot of black people in Albuquerque, and that's part of the cause. Is the whole cause is to stand up for black people and minorities that don't get treated fairly sometimes. And I was driving through downtown or near downtown. And I called Jon. I was like, man, there's not really any black people down here. We should come down here and represent. Or we both decided. He said, come pick me up. So we went down there to show support, and we got down there, and there was a lot of negative things going on, and we didn't like that. And Jon stepped up and took those cans, and it was pretty cool to watch. And because it could have been a dangerous situation for us, but it was the right thing to do.
Did he take more cans away before you hit record and then more after you turned it off, or did it continue on?
That was so we were after that group, and we had already encountered them once, and then then we knew it was going to kind of be an issue. So but after that Jon we flagged down a news van, and Jon got on the news, and it's like, if you have ill thoughts, if you're going out tonight and have ill thoughts, just stay home. Tell your family members, tell your nephews, your sons, stay home if they're going out to cause trouble tonight, because it definitely takes away from the impact of everything. It takes away having people riot and loot and destroy cities when that's not the message that we need to get across.
100%, especially when guys like you and Jon Jones are demanding to give over the spray cans. They're going to give over those damn spray cans. But
Absolutely.
I was telling other fighters this earlier, because what is happening right now, it may have divided the country at first in a lot of different ways, but I feel like at this point it's slowly bringing people to the same page. And yeah, it's not going to be a quick fix. And yes, it's not going to bring everybody on that page. But these conversations, they're important to have right now. In fact, they need to happen everywhere, right?
Absolutely. And with that being said, my corners, when we raised the fist afterwards, after my fight, that was my corner, Chad Smith. That was his idea. And because he feels strongly about the issue too. And we all look different. We're all, definitely different political stances even, and everything like that. And we were able to come together on that, and it was a really cool deal.
Aljamain Sterling and Alex Caceres had both been very vocal throughout the week and after their fights. And Alex had told some stories during the virtual media day that blew a lot of people away about him being racially profiled, unfairly treated because of the way he looks. Have you been in a position where that's happened to you before?
I have, not as much as a lot of people. I'm lighter skinned, but coming from South Dakota, there's not. Growing up there, I grew up in a smaller town. There's not a whole lot of color, so I was kind of already used to being looked at as a little different. Sometimes I didn't even know it, but I have had issues with the police, and a situation where I was driving my buddy's car because he couldn't drive. He was, had some drinks and stuff, and we were 16, 17 years old. And I hadn't drank. I didn't have anything on me. And the cops pulled us over. I was speeding, and he found my buddy had some paraphernalia stuff on him, and I had no idea about it, nothing like that. And the cop actually tried to blame it all on me and try to give my friend an out. So like after that, I kind of realized that things might be a little different for some people.
What happened there? Did your friend had your back, I assume, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that friend was in my wedding. It's just years later he was in my wedding. But yeah, he had my back, and it's like, no, man, it's my stuff. And yeah, so it was definitely thankful for him owning up to it and not taking that out that the cop gave him. And yeah.
In regards to the UFC, the promotion you fight for, the biggest organization in the world, there's a couple of questions that have been out there. One was asked to both Alex and Aljo and were answered by both of those guys. The other, I haven't really seen much of it. So we'll start with the latter. Thus far, while other sports and organizations have done so, the UFC has yet to put out a statement on the company's stance on this topic, it's pretty surprising to me at this point. Like, they did honor George Floyd during the May 30th event, but they haven't released an actual statement when it comes to this situation. Like, how do you react to that? I feel that's kind of weird.
I don't know what direction they're trying to go with it, but I'm kind of all right with it right now, and I don't think it says one thing or another, because they allowed me to do what I did and allow us to voice our opinions on it without getting in trouble for it, which is super huge. And you look at what happened to the NFL and Kaepernick and stuff like that; they didn't support him, and for me to be able to do that, I take that as support.
That's a very good point right there. And the other question is that both those gentlemen answered is, how do you feel the UFC is doing in regards to promoting their minority fighters? Like, what have you seen, and what do you think they could do better? Because maybe they just don't really know what they're doing. I don't know.
It's really hard to say, because we've had some really good minority fighters, and some of them have been promoted at certain times, and others are they get a promotion for a little bit, and then it's kind of, they'll go with something else. So I definitely think it could be a little better. I don't know how. I haven't really thought about the details of it, but it could.
As a bald white man speaking, and I'd love to get your take on this, while I feel that these conversations are happening and they are at the forefront of our minds, I really do hope, Devin, that it doesn't just stop and fade away and then come back when something terrible happens, because I feel that happens a lot, not just about this subject, but others too. Like, the next big terrible thing happens, we focus on that, and the thing that happened before just fades away. What can you, me, the fighters, the rest of the country do to prevent that from happening?
I would say take a stance on it now. That's about all we can do, and keep fighting for it. And if you see it in public, and we got to start with ourselves too. And like I've said in other interviews, treat others how you want to be treated. If we start there, that'll change a lot of things. It'll change a lot of things. So if we keep going with that, it'll definitely start to get us in the right path. And it'll be a long time before the war on racism and stuff like that is over. So it's going to be a long road, but I have a feeling it's going to get better for sure.
There's obviously, the big context of this conversation is there's more important things than fighting right now. And right now is a perfect example of that. But one amazing accomplishment that has happened in your life, and you mentioned your wedding and having your friend in your wedding, is that you and your wife just celebrated anniversary number 2. Congratulations on that. 2 years down. You're talking that.
We've been together over 13 years. What's that?
I was just going to say, you're talking to an 8-year vet right now. So especially this day and age, 2 years is a big deal.
Yeah, 2 years, but we've been together for over 13 years since we were in high school. So it's been a fun road, and she does really good at supporting me. I mean, it's been a long road, this MMA and UFC stuff, and at times it hasn't always been definitely not easy. So I just thank her for supporting me.
Yeah, because especially in this sport, finding somebody who understands the life of a fighter and what you all have to go through, that is almost impossible to find. How crucial has that been to you to have that pivotal piece of the puzzle?
Huge. I wouldn't be able to do it without her. And we have a 6-year-old daughter, and I leave town for my camps, and that's really, so my wife's here at home working and taking care of our daughter, and that's a huge thing. And, it's hard to repay, but she does it, and I love her for it.
There you go. Last thing before we let you go, and I appreciate the time very much. I know you got some healing up to do, some things to take care of before you fight again. But since you didn't get a chance to do a post-fight interview with Rogan or DC, they probably ask you what you want next. So what do you want next?
I want some camo shorts. No. I mean, camo shorts would be cool, but I'd like a top 15 guy for sure. That's just what I have my sights set on. I want to get into that top 15, looking for a bigger fight. And of course I'll take whoever they throw at me most of the time. So, just looking for the next one and string those W's together and keep climbing, keep getting better.
Just have your father call Dana White and the matchmakers and get him on the phone, and you'll get a top 15 guy. I have a feeling that'll happen.
There we go.
Yeah. Amazing stuff, Devin. I mean, your dad may have gotten my performance bonus, but you were one of the big stars of the night without question, with everything you did in the octagon, the performance, how you overcame adversity to get a really tough victory. And I truly admire how you used the platform you had been given to the best of your ability. I thought you did an amazing job. So all the best to you. Heal up. Happy anniversary, and look forward to seeing what's next for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Really, really amazing stuff right there from Devin Clark. I learned a lot in that conversation. I love what that man stands for, and really looking forward to seeing him continuously evolve in this sport, because I feel like he's starting to hit his stride right now after that big win on Saturday night, and just an amazing night for him. I mean, he's on CNN, New York Times, so many national and worldwide outlets for what he did in the octagon with raising the fist. Is just incredible stuff. And I actually wish we could have heard more from him on Saturday night with the media, but we got him here, and I'm glad we were able to make that happen on What the Heck. But speaking of big wins on Saturday night at UFC 250, how about Ian Heinisch? Back against the wall. He's coming in on back-to-back losses. A cornerman potentially with a positive COVID-19 test. Heinisch is in, Heinisch is out, and then Heinisch is back in. It's like the hokey pokey against Gerald Meerschaert. He picked up his first finish in the UFC and has already booked his next fight. So let's check in with the Hurricane himself, Ian Heinisch. All right, Ian Heinisch joins us on the show right now. UFC middleweight is in the middle of one of the craziest weeks I've seen in the sport in quite some time, that's for sure. He did pick up a big win over the weekend against Gerald Meerschaert at UFC 250 and already has his next fight booked. Ian, how are you, sir? Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm doing real good, man. Just trying to ride this high, enjoying this huge win, because don't let anyone fool you, man. Getting a big win in the UFC is no easy task. So when you get it, you really want to soak it in and enjoy it. But when opportunity comes knocking, especially with this whole COVID thing, it was an opportunity I had to take, and it was kind of crazy how the whole fight actually lined up.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll get into that in a minute because we have a lot to discuss. But first, let's talk about the win on Saturday night, because you looked fantastic. And I remember as soon as the fight ended, I remember messaging a member of your management team, the great Ed Cap. And I sent something to the effect of, well, that was a different guy in there. And it was more than just like a change in camp and coaches. There was a different look in your eye. I thought your entire demeanor was different. That's how I saw it. What say you? Did you feel like much different this time around than you felt maybe in the Brunson fight or the one right after that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. There was just a different focus. Taking 2 losses in the UFC is something you never want to do. Your job's basically on the line. So, I had to go out, and I went to Thailand. I felt God leading me out there. I fell in love with the camp. Just really, I changed some things physically, but mostly I changed mentally. My mental game is so much different now. I had to remember why I love this sport and what makes me get up every morning to go to practice, and just keep that in mind and not focus on the wins, the losses so much as just performing and doing what I love to do. Because when you're having fun, you win, and winning's fun. So I came out there with a whole different mindset, and a lot of new technical changes as well. But I didn't get to showcase them, and I'm excited to in a few weeks.
Did you feel like the sport wasn't as much fun as it used to be for you? Did you feel like the love for it kind of went away? And you mentioned God led you out to Thailand to go train with those guys. Did you start falling out of love with MMA after those 2 losses?
Yeah, I just didn't enjoy going to practice. I didn't enjoy the day-to-day grind. And that's the part you have to enjoy. The fighting's like, that's like the reward of all the hard work, the fruits of your labor. But I was stagnant, man. It wasn't me. I was settling down. I bought a house. It was the same routine every day. It was a lot of driving. That's not me, man. I'm the king of controversy. Like, I love to mix things up. Like, I'm flying to Thailand. I'm training out there for 2 weeks. Then the COVID hits. I got to come back. And I don't know. I'm in a place where, like, I don't have coaches. I don't have training partners. And everything just worked out so perfect. I found a small group of guys, some new coaches. I didn't want to go back to the old gym because just felt there was some tension there still that needed some time to heal. And it all came together, man, and so perfectly. And then having the false positive at the COVID test on the week of the fight when I'm cutting weight, like, man, for some reason I thrive in those controversial moments, and that's the kind of the cards that God has dealt me, and I've learned to just roll with it and embrace it.
The chaos led to your first finish in the UFC. How about that? Gerald's a very game guy too. He's a wily veteran. He was probably, in terms of meritocracy and where he was at, I think he was at like kind of a sky high level, approaching a big step into the top 15, and you went in there and shut that down real quick. How good did that feel to finally get that first finish?
Yeah, it was funny because I yelled at like DC and Joe Rogan. I was like, I guess I only get finishes when there's no crowds, because, I got that big finish at Contender Series and I haven't got one yet since then. So, no, it felt so good. And Gerald is he's class. He's pure class. I like the guy. I've been watching him for a while. He's fought the best of the best in the who's who in the sport, and just a true veteran. Brendan Allen, I don't really have respect for that kid. He's kind of cocky. He's all over the place. His shit talking doesn't even really make sense half the time. And, I believe I'm kind of in his head now. And so, hats off and respect to Gerald, but I'm going to go take care of his buddy, Brendan Allen.
Yep, that fight is happening June 27th. And, I want to go back to Thursday because it was such a crazy day. You're getting, like you said, you're in the middle of cutting weight, getting ready to fight a very tough guy in around 48 hours or so. And then we all find out that you're out of the fight. There's a new opponent, and then you're back in the fight. So so basically what happened was, and you can kind of fill in the blanks here, your coach tests positive for COVID-19, and then he's retested to see if it's a false positive, which it was. That's what happened, right? Like, he did test positive, and then they came back and tested him again, and turned out it wasn't positive at all.
So what I know of it is he tested inconclusive in the first test, and they retested the same sample, and then it was positive. But those tests, they're not the most accurate. The blood test is the most accurate. My wife's a nurse, and so I know a little bit about this. And it was crazy. It was chaos because it wasn't one of my coaches. It was actually one of my training partners that I was using for a body out in the camp. And he was actually, in the mix with other guys training throughout that week. So the whole card was essentially going to fall off, like it was going to fall apart because he was contaminating a lot of people if he was really positive. So I said, calm down, get him a second test. They isolated him. It took like 5 hours to get this test. The media got wind of it. It was just wild. Everyone tell me, you backed out, you're scared, blah, blah, blah. I just shut my phone up for 5 hours and just focus on what I can control and just kind of bring that bulletproof prison mentality back and just, hey, this is in God's hands. And, I've been through way worse. And so I just kind of laughed in the face of adversity these days. And I just stayed on course. My coach said, nope. And it was literally right when I just finished my last bit of water and my last bit of food. So it was one of the hardest parts of weight cut where you just have to wait around till you lose that last 10 pounds, 11 pounds, whatever it was. You lose half that night, half the next morning. And, hours later came back to test. It was negative. Fights back on. And then after I finished Gerald so fast, he said, okay, well, you still can fight Brendan Allen, because my management, Jason House, already had me a backup fight. He's a hustler, man. He's working. So he already had me the backup fight with Brendan Allen. And then I finished Gerald super fast. And then they were like, okay, you can still take that fight.
Wow, what a crazy story. So it was your idea to order the second test, the blood test? That was you saying, listen, I know what I'm talking about here. Test him again? Or did the UFC make that decision?
I don't say it was just my idea, but we definitely, me and my management were pushing for it, because there was like an hour or two that went by where he was quarantined and there was nothing happening. So we were like, yo, get this doctor here and let's figure this out, because I'm in limbo, cutting weight and in a place that I don't want to be for very long. And I know I had to mess with Gerald's head too, because now he's fighting another guy, then he's fighting me again. So I knew it was mutual with the head games that I was playing. But I pushed for that test to get it done ASAP. So I think the UFC learned a lot, and they're going to be they did a great job, but they're going to be more efficient now after, because that was the first time a corner's tested positive.
Yeah, I think someone in Jacare's team did as well, but this is kind of a much different situation with it being in Vegas and, trying to get a false positive result as well. I mean, it's something. And I feel like as the weeks go on, we're going to continue to learn more about this and add different pieces to it. But it was funny because I spoke with Gerald after weigh-ins on Friday, and with everything that has happened in your life, Thursday was probably like the 2000th most interesting day of your life. But how stressful was that for you anyways?
It put stress on my body just a little bit. I kind of laughed a lot, to be honest, because I was like, this is wild. Like, what do we do? I wanted to like say to my team, sorry, because Jason was like, your fight's off. We're hopefully going to get you at least your show money, blah, blah, blah. And like, I'm like, almost felt like I needed to say sorry, but I was like, what am I sorry for? Like, I didn't test positive. And in my cornerman, it wasn't his fault either. All we've been doing is training with each other. And so it was just interesting. It was new, but I just laughed a lot. I just kept the vibe good. And then eventually I started to get a little stressed out when all this stuff was on the internet. And my coach did a great job and said, hey, let's go hit some mitts and listen to reggae and just hang out in the workout room. And we did that for a few hours, and that really just helped a lot.
So with this small group of people you've put together once you came back from Thailand to get you ready for Gerald, is this going to be the same group you're working with, getting you ready for the 27th in Brendan Allen?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it. We're gunning to go get another big win, and the plan is still to move back to Thailand. But if I have a fight in the States, I think I would split the camp. 4 weeks there, 4 weeks here. Bring the Tiger coach out if he wanted to do that. And there's options here. I have a very good connection with these coaches. God led me to them, but I'm still led to Thailand, and I know I'm going to go back there after this. But I figured, with this big layoff with COVID, I can get 2 fights in a month, and I'll be on track to get my 4 fights that I want this year.
You touched on it a little earlier, and I wanted to go back to, because when I think of you, at least when I thought of you, you and Factory X were connected. You were hand in hand. And I know how much of an impact Mark Montoya had on you outside of the cage, like mentally, spiritually. But what led you to making that switch, if you don't mind me asking? And why was it so awkward to go back there after you got back from Thailand?
I have nothing bad to say about Factory X and Mark, and Busy and the whole crew over there. They're my foundation. I gave them huge shout outs after my fight, and I'll continue to do that. I have nothing bad to say. It's me. Like, I'm a nomad. Like, I'm a person who loves to just like travel and be around and experience these new things. And I just was like mentally getting stagnant. Like, it was like drive to Factory X, drive to Land Up Performance, drive home, drive to Factory X, drive home. Like, and there was so much traffic in Colorado at the time, just eating in your car. It was just a grind that I wasn't enjoying anymore. It wasn't about the fighting anymore. It was about so many different things. And I had other outside things, which also I love, like mentoring kids, speaking at schools, speaking for football teams, speaking at programs, rehabs, all these things. And I love doing that. But to become the best at something in the world is really hard, and you got to focus everything on it. And in Thailand, I feel a sense of isolation, and you're literally on a street where there's 2 MMA gyms and like 15 Muay Thai gyms, CrossFit gyms, massage and food and hotels. and everything is focused around fighting. There's fights in every single restaurant you go in. And I feel like it's an opportunity to isolate. And this COVID has helped me isolate here because it's small group training, really intense coaching on you always have a coach or two coaches. And basically nobody had a fight except me. So all the focus was on me. And that just mixing the things up is something I needed to do. And that's kind of what made me leave Factory X. I just was going to Thailand for 5 weeks just for a mental refocus, and fell in love with it. And I was like, this is for me. I got to do what I love to do. I love the ocean. I felt God calling me out there. And then so I told him I was leaving, and I just didn't feel it was right to come back and be like, hey, I'm leaving you, but I'm back because of COVID, but then I'm going to leave again, just so you know. And, I just felt like there would be some tension there. And that's the last thing a fighter needs from his coach. You just want it to be all good vibes, smooth, just a very relaxed vibe with your coach, because you're already having bad vibes with your opponent and all these outside things that try to distract you. So you want your coach to be like a safe place for you to go and be around. So that's kind of the reason I left. And that's kind of the reason I didn't go back for this camp.
Well said. That makes a lot of sense. So speaking of Thailand, like Tyron Woodley was out there. I think you worked with him while he was there getting ready for the Leon Edwards fight that actually never happened. And then Cynthia Calvillo was out there, I think right before you went out there. And when I interviewed her and talked to her about that, she said that every fighter, maybe even every human being at some point, should take some time and spend a week out there, because it's just so you learn so much about yourself and there's things that you take for granted now that you probably won't anymore after spending a week over there. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. And and that's what I've kind of been preaching kind of about the whole riots and stuff. Like, yes, our country is very messed up, but if you've been to places like Asia and South America and you want to see really corrupt police, like really corrupt, go out there. And I know we have huge issues in our country, but I feel like some people are forgetting the good things as well and just trying to destroy it and just get wild. And you kind of have to look at both sides, like all the good stuff that our police force has done. And yes, there are a few bad eggs that ruin the whole bunch, and we need to get them out and make some changes in our government, and mostly make changes in our media, I think, because they push a narrative of just hate and division. But yeah, Thailand is an eye-opening place. The culture, the people, the landscape, and the training, and just it has something in the atmosphere out there, and it's really, really cheap to live. So I highly recommend it.
With your fighting career, do you like it this way? Like, let's just fight every 3-4 weeks, keep this train rolling. It's kind of like the old school amateur fighting days, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If I can be this healthy after a fight, and we put in so many hard sparring rounds. Like, it takes a while to get where I'm at right now in this peak performance. And if I can avoid that, because I feel like that puts so many miles on you doing those hard sparring rounds, and I could come out of a fight unscathed and have an opportunity to train for 2 more weeks and jump right back in, why not do it, especially in these times? Brendan Allen would never get this shot right here. Never. I would never take this fight, and he would never get this fight offered to him if it wasn't for the COVID times. But they're running out of fighters in America that are ready. So people that are opportunistic and are ready to fight are getting the opportunities and making the money right now. So it's an opportunity I'm going to take for sure.
Yeah, because Brendan was your original opponent before Gerald took the fight, right?
No.
He wasn't? I thought he was offered the fight first.
No,
he couldn't take it.
Maybe. I don't know. They threw his name around, but in the end, Gerald was the one who was ready. So yeah, maybe he wasn't ready. Maybe he wasn't training. I don't know his excuses, man. I just know I hear him on a bunch of interviews talking some smack, and whatever he's got to do to pump himself up, man. This is the step up. I'm ranked for a reason, and he's going to feel that on the 27th. Why?
What have you made of his UFC run so far? Have you watched the fights with Holland and Breeze? And if so, what have you made from him as he gets ready for his top 15 opponent, or his first top 15 opponent, that is? He's tough. He wants to get to the ground really bad, but I'm the jiu-jitsu killer, man. Like Antonio Carlos Jr., even Cesar Ferreira is a 3-stripe black belt. Even in my LFA days, like Daniel Madrid and Checo, I do very well against these jiu-jitsu guys. And
I talked to my boy Eric Anders, who's fought Brendan Allen, and he's giving me some pointers. Kid's tough, man. Everyone's tough in the UFC, but I feel like I know I'm on a different level, and if I come out with that same mentality, that same flow, which I'm gonna, he doesn't stand a chance.
I feel like you're in similar places in your career. At least like he was where you were probably like a year and a half ago. Like you had this long winning streak, you had it snapped, lost a couple in a row, and then you were able to bounce back and learn some valuable lessons along the way and came back with a great win over your opponent's teammate. Is it time for Brendan to learn those lessons after hearing those interviews? You trying to do him a little bit of a favor on June 27th?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt the kid's got talent, but he's young. He's never, he hasn't stepped up to that competition like me fighting Derek Brunson or Omari Akhmedov. Like, these guys hit different. Like, it feels different in there. Like, I can feel the difference in there compared with Gerald and them. And granted, I didn't hit the ground with Gerald, and that's where he's strong, but I can feel the difference, and I just feel like, he's got these 2 wins. I felt like Kevin Holland was beating him and kind of just made a mistake and got caught. But Tom Breeze has always been, he's mentally not ready. He pulled out against me after the stare down. So, he hasn't hit these guys that are real veterans of the sport that are ranked. And he's going to feel the difference because I felt the difference for sure. And I believe he'll take an L, maybe 2. And, he'll probably grow and fall into his own more and not be, such a trash talker and be more comfortable striking and be more well-rounded. But right now, this is my time. This is God's plan. And I'm excited to put on a show because I have so many new skills that I didn't get to show. My violent wrestling, all these different things on the feet. I'm excited.
Violent wrestling. Wow. I am intrigued, Ian. Violent wrestling. What does that mean?
It means when you shoot, it's not really like a wrestling shot. It's more of a football tackle and you just blow through people and you come with strikes really hard, and you don't play jujitsu. This guy wants to sit in his guard. Like, you don't do that. You just hit him, like kind of like that Yoel Romero, where he just throws people around, manhandles them, strikes, lets them get back up, and kind of uses that up down to his advantage. And I'm excited, man. I've grown so much this past 6 months between Tiger Muay Thai, Genesis Elevation, my new coaches, my coaches over there, and just my foundation at Factory X, man. I just feel like I'm falling in my own. I got the after fight swag still inside of me, and I'm going to carry that over to my next fight. And I was just there, and I'm going to do it again.
Is this as free as you felt in your career at this point? Like, you just feel like a lot of the issues that have hindered you over the last year and a half, I wouldn't say they've gone away, but they're off of your chest a little bit more. Yeah,
I've conquered some demons. I think that's the best way to put it. Just some demons of doubt and fear, and just kind of finding myself like being trapped in one place and kind of like buying a house, getting married, and like, oh, am I really going to settle down right now? Like, no, that's not me. Not now. And now I'm all over the place again. Like I love to be. Chaos is flying everywhere. I'm doing controversial things, like taking quick fights, having corners test positive for COVID. Like, I'm thriving, man. This is where I truly thrive. The king of controversy's back, and I'm excited to go in and hopefully have a corner not test positive this week around, and go in there and repeat what just happened.
Looking forward to it, Ian. Great to have you back at it with the quickness on June 27th against Brendan Allen. Always appreciate the time. All the best to you in a few weeks, man.
All right. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Huge win for Ian Heinisch on Saturday night against a guy whose stock was rising in a big way, at least from where I sit and a lot of other people as well. Gerald Meerschaert, a wily veteran of the game, and he's likely going to be in Brendan Allen's corner when those two guys meet on June 27th in Las Vegas. And as Gerald has told us, if you listen to my interview right before the fight last week, Brendan Allen was initially offered the fight. He couldn't do it. So because Gerald and Brendan have the same management team, Gerald was able to slide right in, and Ian gets a finish, and then Ian can get that fight with Brendan Allen after all, and he will in a few weeks' time in Las Vegas. Now, this weekend in Las Vegas, Gina Mazany, who was released by the UFC last year after getting knocked out by Macy Chiasson at UFC 235, she took one fight on the regional scene, for King of the Cage, got a first-round finish, and now she is right back in the UFC, and she fights Julia Avila this Saturday night at the UFC Apex at UFC on ESPN 10. I think we're going with that. I think the official hashtag is hashtag UFC Vegas 2. I think that's what it is. Don't quote me on that, but keep that being released part of this equation. Keep that in mind when you listen to this interview, because it is pretty wild and it is something that really stuck out to me. So here she is, Gina Mazany, back on the UFC roster and joining What the Heck for the first time as she prepares to fight this Saturday night against Julia Avila. All right, back in the UFC and on the show for the very first time, Gina Mazany is getting set to take on Julia Avila this Saturday in Las Vegas, Nevada. Gina, good to see you and your pink hair. How are you?
Heck yeah, it's good to see you guys. Good to meet you. I'm a happy camper. Life's good.
Right? So just when you thought you were out, they bring you back in. Like, I can't remember a time off the top of my head where a fighter was no longer with the UFC. They had one fight out of the promotion and are right back in. Circumstances be damned, Gina. You did it. How does it feel to be back on the roster?
I mean, it feels great. I really do believe that that's where I belong. I think that's where I deserve to be. I've worked too hard and I trained too much. I really haven't stopped since I've gotten fired. I would call that like a little bit of a setback, but I mean, in reality, it was a blessing in disguise. I just got better, just had a lot more time to sharpen my tools, and yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm stoked.
So how did this all come together? Because Julia was supposed to fight Carol Rosa, and this is the fourth time they try to book this fight, and the fourth time that it's fallen apart for various reasons. This time it was a visa issue and travel restrictions due to COVID-19. But how did you enter into this mix?
So, I mean, to be fair, I moved to Las Vegas from Seattle, and I moved to Las Vegas for these specific reasons that, I mean, in my opinion, I think Las Vegas is one of the fight capitals in the world. Now we have the UFC Performance Institute. There was the Contender Series. There's, Ultimate Fighter, all that kind of stuff. So if you're in the same state and the same city as, where you want to be, those opportunities are going to open up. So, I mean, during this whole quarantine thing, like obviously like Tim and I were still training, still doing our thing. Not as hard, I guess. But then there was talks of like fights happening, and I just kind of stayed ready. Like, I mean, hope for the best and expect the worst, you know what I mean? And I got a, 9 days notice fight. And I mean, at least I'm not fighting Sarah McMahon this time. Like, I'm cool with it. I'm always game. I've never said no to anybody they've asked me to fight. So I'm really excited for it. I'm so stinking grateful.
After that fight with Macy Chiasson, like you talked about, your first run with the UFC came to an end. You came back around 10 or 11 months later for that King of the Cage fight, and you got a first round finish against Valerie Barney, who actually competed in a kickboxing bout against Holly Holm back in the day, which I thought was interesting. But what was that night like for you to just get back in there, your first fight out of the UFC, in your first fight in a while, and just go out there and get a finish like that?
So first, like when they let me go, I didn't know that I was fired for a good 6-7 months. But the management I was previously with had me under the impression to stay ready, to keep my weight low and be ready for a short notice fight. And obviously, like I'm a good listener, so that's what I did, and I stayed ready. And then I signed with Jason House, and then I was talking to Jason House, and basically he was like, yeah, they let you go. And so I was like, shit, well, get me a fight, you know what I mean? And so I signed with him. But anyways, and then I got the fight in Colorado. It was crazy because my weight was like, I was walking around like 150 pounds, getting ready to take a short notice bantamweight fight. And the fight was at 155. So it was cool. I ate ice cream every night before I went to bed, and like, but I still had abs, and like, I was just, it was cool. But I mean, to be fair, like that win wasn't like, didn't give me the feels that I'm looking for on Saturday night. Like the feels that I'm looking for on Saturday night, I haven't felt in a minute. So I'm super hungry for this fight. I'm super ready. Yeah. But the Colorado fight was cool. It was a great promotion. Like they treated me kind, but it was, yeah, I'm really happy to be back where I am though.
So for 6 or 7 months, you thought that you were still on the roster, like waiting for your next fight?
Yeah, 100%. And I was still going to the Performance Institute. I was still getting PT from them. I was still getting strength conditioning from them. I was still getting fed from them, but I wasn't on the roster. So it was a very weird situation. And I know Mick felt really bad that I was kind of being dicked around. So I'm grateful that he was, somewhat sympathetic for that, because it sucks. Like it's I think being a fighter is a hard job as it is, but it's even harder when you're like working towards, you don't know what you're working towards. You know what I mean? If I didn't have a job with them, like I much rather would have gotten, I'm more happy if I'm active. And so I wasn't active during those 6 to 7 months. So it was, yeah, it sucked. It sucked, but yeah, I'm back.
So how did you react to all of it? Because you thought you were under contract. Jason House tells you something completely different. Like, how do you react to finding out that for 6 or 7 months you've been doing all these things thinking you were on the roster, and then find out that you're not on the roster at all?
I was fucking pissed. I was so mad. Like, I just, because I'm 31 and I think with females especially, like the older we get, the better we are, really. I do believe that. And we can fight till we're 35, 36, but it's like, I don't have any time to waste. Like I was healthy and I was ready and I was in shape and, and I was under the impression that opportunities like that would come along. And I was there were fights coming up and I was like, hey, if one of the girls fall out, I would love to take it. Hey, if one of these girls falls out, I'd love to take it. Like I was on it and I was doing my homework for my management team. And I was telling them, hey, I'll take any of these fights. I'll fight any of these girls. If they, someone doesn't make weight, or I'll make weight for this fighter. I tried everything and it just never happened. And it just it was such a bummer, but Jason House was a breath of fresh air where he sat me down and was like, hey, here's the deal. We're going to get you a fight. You're not going to make any money really, but that's okay. And then, hopefully maybe another fight, and then we'll get you back in the UFC. We'll get you back to a big promotion where you'll get paid. So, and he did what he said, and I did what I said I would do. So it's, stars are starting to align finally.
Right. Jeez Louise. Can't even imagine. But now you're back and you're taking on a 35er that a lot of people have their eye on right now. And Julia Avila, she had that great win in her promotional debut around a year or so ago. Hasn't been able to get back in there because of these bookings with Rosa. They just kept falling apart. But now you get the chance to come back and play spoiler against a fighter with a lot of buzz right now. Does that sort of enhance your excitement a little bit?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I would say she's technically undefeated because her one loss, she hurt her finger somehow. I think it was a kick or something, but her bone was sticking out. So in my mind, she's technically undefeated. And but man, I'm stoked about that. Nothing worth having comes easy, and having a win over her would just give me those feels that I'm looking for, and would really make me feel good about all the hard work I've been putting in. And it is short notice, so the weight cut's gonna suck, and I'm prepared, but it's short notice is short notice, so it is what it is. But yeah, no, I'm excited to fight her. It'll be a fun fight.
So it sounds like you're pretty familiar with her.
Yeah, I've seen her fight a few times. We follow each other on Instagram. It was cool except I got the call and I was like, hell yeah, I'll take the fight. And right after she messaged me and she goes, thanks so much for saving this fight. I'll see you next week. And I was like, fuck yeah. Sounds good. So yeah, she's definitely a prospect, and she's got a good record, and she's good, and she's tough, and hasn't been finished, and all that fun stuff. But yeah, I'm excited about it.
Do you feel like you're going into this fight with a lot less pressure on you now? Because if you look at the betting odds, you're the biggest underdog on the card right now, which what is what it is. But do you feel like you're playing with house money a little bit? You're going in there 9 days notice. There's not a lot of time to overthink this one.
Yeah, for me, I always put a little bit of pressure on myself, but they say pressure makes diamonds, and that's what I'm going for. It's big risk, big reward, and I wouldn't be in the UFC in the first place if I didn't take these kind of opportunities. If a door kind of cracks open, I gotta burst through it. I'm gonna Sparta kick that damn door down. but like, what else am I supposed to do? You know what I mean? Like, that's this kind of attitude you have to have in this game. But yeah, it's, I don't remember the question. I'm just so jazzed.
You want those feels. I'm talking about like the pressure heading into the fight, how,
Yeah, there's always pressure. It was funny, like, when I was listening to Tim getting interviewed and stuff, and all, people like, man, this is like kind of a do or die fight, but all fights are do or die. Every single fight I've had, my very first fight was a do or die fight. So I was like, am I really cut out for this? Is this really my jam? And this fight, it's like, it's a do or die fight for me. It's like, does Gina really deserve to be in the UFC? And like, is she really able to step up to these girls? Like, I love being the underdog. I love being, I don't know. I have enough people around me that believe in me, and like I believe in myself, to where like I don't need those fools. I don't need people who are like betting against me. That's cool. Like, do your thing, but I'll surprise everybody.
Yeah, I was probably one of those people who asked him that question, but
it's cool, but it's like, when it was, I'm glad those questions are asked, because like it puts into reality like every fight's a do or die. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I've never had a fight where I'm like, if I lose, like, whatever. Like, I just want to be, I want to be successful. And I think all of us in this sport wants to be successful, which how much work you have to put in to like get prepared for these kind of things.
So do you look at this fight right now, being back in the UFC, do you feel and approach things a little bit differently than you did maybe say with the Macy fight? Like, is your feeling heading into it a much different feeling than it was a year and a half ago?
Yeah, because I've gotten better, and I feel like I have more of an answer for everything. Obviously, like, getting like caught and knocked out, like, that was crazy. That sucked. But it's like, I didn't have any control over that. So it's like, I'm just going to go in and like be hungry and do my thing, and just like, the goal always stays the same. The goal always stayed the same. When I got fired from the UFC and I made under $1,000 for my Colorado fight, like, the goal still stayed the same. Like, I just want to be the best Gina Bear I could be. And, but yeah, I don't know. The feeling's pretty much like, it's all the same. It's weird. Fighting's weird.
It is. What do you think is the biggest difference between the Gina we're going to see on Saturday compared to the one we saw against Macy?
I think it sucks. Like, I really wish the Macy fight would have gone on longer, so I could have showed you guys more shit. But like, hopefully you'll see more of what I've been working on when I've been, making things perfect, and like making, I don't know, just being a better Gina Bear. And hopefully that will show up on Saturday, and I'm sure she will. But yeah, I've gotten better. I've gotten a lot better.
How is, Tim's right there with you. How is he doing? That fight with Brandon Royval was bananas. It was absolutely insane. I loved watching every second of it. You got an extra 50 G's, which doesn't hurt at all. But, what was it like for you to watch that fight and have it play out the way that it did?
Oh God, he's inside getting tacos.
Okay.
He's doing good, and it sucks because like his gas tank just ran out, and he just put on such a high pace, and like that's something that I needed to learn too. And I'm, in a way, like, it's a blessing in disguise for my fight. Like, I put on that kind of a pace, but I also got a 9 days notice for this. I'm in shape. I'm in great shape, but I don't think I'm at that fight pace that he was at, So he's doing good, and I'm grateful that he got the bonus, just because it's not just for the money, but like just to be recognized that he is a good fighter, and he's a very talented dude, and there's no reason why he can't be winning right now. And he just got caught, and that sucks. But he's doing good. We're gonna, after this fight, we were actually gonna plan on going tomorrow. We were planning on driving out to Kansas City. Tim's daughter's out there, and we're going to go train James Krause for a little bit and hang out with his kid and all that fun stuff. But we're going to wait till after my fight.
Yeah, it was interesting talking to Brandon, because he's still kind of pissed about the fight. He didn't think he performed that well, and he gave Tim all the respect in the world and said that I felt like I just got my ass kicked until he got tired. That was like the way he approached the fight, and you got to respect the honesty there. But Tim had his fight, and now you're going to have yours against Julia Avila. Opportunity to return to the UFC and just make a huge splash on Saturday night. How do you see this thing playing out?
I think I'm gonna surprise her quite a bit. I really do. I have a feeling that her and her team might be underestimating me a little bit, like everyone else is. But it's like, I mean, I feel like if somebody, I don't know, I've just been training with grown men for the past 6 to 8 weeks and getting my butt kicked by grown men, and then kicking grown men's butts for the past 6 to 8 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm used to the kind of grind and the pressure that she likes to put on girls, and like that's nothing new to me. So like I'm actually more comfortable there in that grind and grit, and like getting really tired. Like that's my jam. So I don't know. You guys will just have to see. Probably a little. I don't know. She'll probably hold me up against the cage. I'll circle off and elbow her, and all that fun stuff. Who knows? We'll see.
I'm looking forward to it. And then Jessica, who you know pretty well, is going to be headlining this event. So is it pretty cool to get your return and share the card with her as the headliner?
Oh, it's awesome. She was one of the first people I told when I got the fight, because her and I have been training a little bit together, and helping her get ready and stuff. And, and I always kept in that mindset, like I might get a call, you never know. And so, yeah, like that, it's really cool. And last time we fought in the same weekend when I fought in Colorado, and she won and I won. So hopefully, we'll keep the ball rolling for sure.
Huge opportunity for Gina Mazany on Saturday night against a standout 135-pound prospect in Julia Avila. Gina gets to play spoiler in a big way. At least she has the opportunity to do so. She is the biggest underdog on the card. And how about the whole thing with her old management team? I know Miesha Tate was her manager for a long time. I don't know if it was Miesha per se. She has a fight coming up, so maybe that's something we could really dive into after the fight. But if it was, or whoever was managing her at the time, what a ball drop of epic proportions. And how awkward must that have been for Gina Danger Mazany? Like showing up at the PI, reaching out to the matchmakers, thinking she was still at the UFC for 7 months. 7 months before finding out from Jason House, who wasn't even her manager at the time, that she had been cut. What a crazy story. Looking forward to seeing her back on Saturday. She is fired up. She is ready to go. Now, next weekend, we have another big women's fight. This one going down at 125 pounds. Lauren Murphy, who has looked great as of late. 2 big wins over Mara Romero Barella and Andrea Lee back in February. She's going to take on our next guest, Roxanne Modafferi, coming off her huge win over Macy Barber in January at UFC 246. That fight was amazing. Roxanne, I think her popularity skyrocketed after that fight. So let's hear from the Happy Warrior right now to wrap up this episode of What the Heck. All right, we have the Happy Warrior joining us right now, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One, she's got a big fight coming up against Lauren Murphy on June 20th. The other, in times like these in the country and in the world, we need a bit of Happy Warrior in our lives, and that is why Roxanne Modafferi joins the show for the first time. How are you, Roxy?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. First things first, 2020 has just been a wild year. We've got a global pandemic. We got protests. The fight for equality is this bigger fight than it's ever been. Police brutality, a lot of things that people have been dealing with. As an optimistic guy myself, I sometimes find myself wondering how much optimism I have left. Luckily, I take a look at my 7-year-old, and when I do, he just like snaps me right out of it. So how do you stay positive all the time when things get tough, whether it's something that happens to you directly or around you?
All right. Just in general, I just try to look at things around me and find anything positive, and focus on the positive more than the negative, because there's always something, whether it be the fact that I got up in the morning or I have friends or, my parents are still alive or anything. I just try to focus on whatever I can. And, what is filling your mind is affecting your emotions. So that's what I try to do.
So just little things, just try to find like little things and just have them build up. And eventually the more you build them up, the more optimistic we can get.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. It is an interesting time.
Make a political statement. I'm trying to avoid.
No. I was just, this is a positivity only thing here. I totally understand where you're coming from, but it is an interesting time for sure. And while there's a lot of businesses and sports leagues shut down, the UFC is off and running, and you get to fight in your backyard at the Apex in Las
Grateful
Vegas.
for that so much.
That's always nice. And you get to do it against a game opponent you have a lot of respect for, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I know you've talked about your last fight a bunch of times against Maycee Barber. And what's interesting about the sport is that you could be in it for such a long time and have a lot of great wins, but one night can just shoot your popularity through the roof. And I feel like that's what happened with you. Do you feel the same way?
I'm not really sure, but I know that a lot of people were counting me out, and, Maycee had a pretty big, she was on I'm not sure how to describe it. She had a lot of hype behind her. So I gladly rode that hype train and then derailed it. So that helped me out a lot.
One thing that I especially noticed, and I think everybody else did as well, heading into the Barber fight, was the incredible condition you were in. Like, people were saying things like, "Oh man, Roxy looks jacked, best she's ever looked." And I know that, like, lifting weights and doing that stuff, I believe you stated before that was something you didn't enjoy, mostly because you didn't have the guidance that you needed. But things changed for you. Why did they?
Exactly. I found Lorenzo Pavlica, and he's my strength and conditioning trainer. He really does a good job. Like, I don't have to understand how it works. I just do what he says, so I quit trying to understand it. I don't write down any of my numbers. He writes down everything. Off season, he has me doing a lot of strength and things that build my explosion. And then, when the fight comes up, we do a lot of stamina training. So he's, 100% the reason that I'm stronger, and it's really cool that other people say that. I can tell him, like, brag to him, like, "Daddy, look at my, our results," sort of thing. But I'm really pleased with that. And I've been training so much over the lockdown period with him. You're going to see even a stronger Roxy, I think.
I was going to say, I spoke with John Wood, your head coach, prior to UFC 249, because he was out helping Donald Cerrone, and it was obviously a rough time for him because the gym had been shut down. But if you look at your social media, like you said, you're still getting work in. Some of your other coaches have been able to set up like an outdoor training place for you. And does it almost, like, in a way, feel like a throwback training camp in a way? Like, you're out of the gym and you're just trying to do whatever you can to get ready?
Like, in hindsight, my training, like, half of my training camp were in parks and a garage. I just didn't have a fight set, but I had a feeling like I got to keep training. I got to keep getting stronger. I got to keep making strides, and then, recently I've been able to train with my normal training partners again and kind of get back to normal. So it's like been a 2-part camp. So it's been crazy, but I've grown a lot over that period. So I'm excited to show what I can do.
I feel like a lot of fighters have done that. They've used this time to their advantage. Some people have been like, "Oh, this brings them down," but others have gotten in the best shape of their lives.
Pretty much, that's me.
And now you get Lauren Murphy, and I feel like this fight has been discussed for a while now. In fact, I had heard that before the fight with Maycee Barber was set, that the original plan for January was that you were supposed to fight Lauren before the UFC shuffled things up. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
And there's a ton of respect here, which I love. There's no bones about it. There's not going to be any trash talk or anything like that. All out of fun and respect. There's also genuine excitement from both of you ladies, which I also enjoy. What excites you the most about this fight with Lauren Murphy?
Well, looking in the top 10, like, she's always made weight, and, like, a ton of people all around us, in the division have not made weight. And I've fought a few people already. Like, I don't really want to rematch a few people. So it's like, who do I want to fight? Lauren seems nice. And she said, like, "Hey, let's fight." And I'm like, "Cool." "Oh, just kidding. We're fighting Maycee Barber. Are you fighting Andrea Lee?" "Okay." "Oh, you want to fight again?" "Oh, great." So I don't know. Our styles are great, together. I think we both believe, obviously, we're going to win. But I'm going to. I think that, my technique works well with her. I'm going to try some new stuff as well. I also have a new super attack that I shall debut. I think we shall see.
Super attack, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, now you got me super intrigued right now, Roxanne.
Oh, yeah.
What did you think of her last fight with Andrea Lee? Because Lauren did get the split decision in the end, but regardless of how, like, anybody scored the fight, Lauren moving to Houston and getting back with her old team turned out to be a great decision for her. She's looked pretty darn good as of late. And as someone who's kind of followed Lauren for a while, you're in the tough house with her. What have you made of her improvements and really the changes she made from a mental standpoint?
I haven't really followed. I don't really know that many details about that, so I don't know.
Oh, fair enough. I didn't know if you watched her fight and saw improvements or watched film or anything like that.
I don't know. I'm not such a great analyst.
Oh,
I just
fair
tried to
enough.
hit her face.
Oh, fair enough. That's what we like to hear. One of the first things people said when this fight was reported was winner's going to get a title shot. And you're in a really interesting position because your teammate is next in line for a title shot. So in a weird way, you're fighting for position in the division, but you don't have to put that kind of pressure on yourself that this is like a title eliminator bout because JoJo is next. Is that how you're kind of approaching this as well?
Everyone always asks me that. Like 2 fights have to happen before that's even possible, So I'm just going to focus on Lauren and executing my game plan on her and not think about anything else because that's all that's in front of me,
Right. And that was my point, that you don't have to think about titles because someone else is already in line. You don't have to put that kind of pressure on yourself.
Uh-huh.
And you've done the
I don't
empty.
even know who said it's a title contention shot. No, Dana White didn't say that. Everyone's just like, oh, guess what? I don't know. I just heard it online. So who knows if that's even the case, I don't know. You
know how fans are, Roxy. They're all matchmakers. Everybody's a matchmaker now.
This is true.
You've done the empty arena fights before on tough 2 different occasions, and Lauren's got that experience as well. What kind of stuck out to you, fighting without a crowd in those tough fights that helps you get ready for this? Do you enjoy that?
I don't really care. It doesn't really make a difference to me, honestly. I don't care.
You don't care? Have you been watching the other fights in the empty arenas and hearing the coaches and being able to hear the fighters being able to hear the commentators and things like that?
I've never heard. Okay, so that's one new thing. I've never heard commentators because on The Ultimate Fighter, there were no commentators, right? It was just my coaches and the other guys' coaches who I could hear. So I'm looking forward to hearing some good commentating advice. Please, whoever you are, please speak up, so I can hear you.
What I'm not going to ask you for prediction because you don't really strike me in that way, but what can fans expect at least in this big, besides the superpowers you're about to expose in this fight? What can fans expect in this big fight, 125 pounds next weekend?
Violence.
Before I let you go, Roxanne, this is one of my favorite things to talk about because I did want to ask you about a couple of your teammates because I've been interviewing the next wave of talent for a long time now. Uh-huh. And 2 of the brightest prospects of the sport, you've shared the Syndicate MMA mats with. One is there all the time. The other comes in during fight camps. Jasmine Jasdavizius is one, but Jordan Levitt is another one. Both are very exciting prospects. Jordan's personality from the times I've interviewed him is something else. This is a guy who is probably wearing Christmas. He's probably wearing Christmas pajamas right now in June. The guy is a character. What have you've been with Jordan for a long time. He looks up to you. You're like a big sister to him. What have you made of his progression and the potential of both of those athletes that people should really keep an eye on right now?
Well, Jordan was wearing like I don't know, tiger print red spats today, just for information. But no, he's so cool. I love that guy so much. His nickname is the Monkey King. He's such a sick grappler. Every time I roll with him, I feel like there's no more gravity in the room anymore. Suddenly it's like we're everywhere, right? He's just sick, and he helps me teach kids. We teach kids together sometimes. I just love seeing him fight. I can't wait for his next opportunity. I think he's going to go really far. He's just crazy. His skill set is crazy.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about him is that a lot of the hard lessons that fighters learn late in their careers, he's learning now. Like every fight he gets in, there's something chaotic that happens, whether it's at weigh-ins or the flight over or something happens to him, and he always comes through and gets a win. It's pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. I'm really looking forward. And then one thing he did want me to ask you at some point if we ever interviewed was your thoughts on the Syndicate MMA Christmas party.
Which one?
Anyone. He said the last one was pretty wild. There was some sort of eating contest that I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was pretty wild.
I think, was that the one where Brandon that people were betting on him to eat like a 10-pound can of beans or something?
Yes, yeah.
Oh man, that poor guy. I was like, don't bet him that. He's gonna do it, and it was disgusting. And I left before he finished it. But and then we did the white elephant gift game where you exchange presents, and somebody got a sex doll, and I think I got what did I get? I got some really inappropriate. I forget what it was, and I kind of left it on the stairs before I went home. You got alcohol or something. I don't drink alcohol. I don't know. It was great.
So it's just that's people watching personified for you. You're just like, oh man, I can't wait to watch this chaos ensue right before Santa comes down the chimney there.
Yeah.
There she is, Roxanne Modafferi. She wanted to keep things simple this week. She's not your typical fighter, as you know. and you heard more so in that conversation, but she is set for a big one next Saturday night against Lauren Murphy in Las Vegas. And by the way, we did mention a couple of prospects in that conversation. Jasmine Jasdavicius, she's from Canada, undefeated. She is someone to watch. Jordan Levitt, he trains with Roxanne full-time at Syndicate MMA. Those two prospects, my prediction, you will see both of them in the UFC or very close by 2021, 2022 at the absolute latest, but it wouldn't shock me to see either of them get the call this year. That's how good they are. But with that, we are done. UFC on ESPN 10 coming up this Saturday night in Las Vegas. Jose Youngs from MMAfighting.com. He will once again be our boots on the ground. That card headlined by Jessica Ai and Cynthia Calvillo. We did talk to both of our main event challengers. Damon Martin spoke with Jessica Ai. That is on MMAfighting.com. We also spoke with Cynthia Calvillo a couple weeks ago on What the Heck. You can find that conversation pretty much anywhere on YouTube and on the website as well. A lot to get into with both of those ladies, but there's going to be chats up on our YouTube page, maybe there right now as we speak, with Charles Rosa, who fights Kevin Aguilar this Saturday, and then fellow newcomers Anthony Ivy and Christian Aguilera, who will be fighting each other this Saturday. Those conversations will be up on YouTube and on the site if they're not there already, so make sure you check those out. But a busy week for all of us, as you would expect. We have Virtual Media Day later on today. On Thursday, we'll have weigh-in show, stare-downs on Friday, preview show on Friday night, Friday afternoon, and all of your coverage on Saturday before, during, and after the event. And I am done ranting. I'm done with the show. I am out of here. Thank you for checking out the show. And as always, have a heck of a week, everybody. My chair doesn't spin.
You're listening to the Vox Media Podcast Network.